Hello and welcome for another day of Night in the Woods, starting part 3, The Long Fall. And if you ever wonder what that click is when this video starts, it's me uh, making a click on the mouth to tell myself when I'm starting to play the previous recording. I guess if I was more professional, I would probably edit that out after I put all of the audio tracks together, but eh. Okay. And yeah, unfortunately, that little hiccup there was I got called away, so had to stop the play and then resume. If you ever see me suddenly pause for no particular reason, that's usually me having to stop and head to other things because yeah, life is like that, I guess. But yeah, so we've finished the first week essentially of Night in the Woods, and yeah, apparently there's a kidnapper going around, which is not good. Yeah, I do like the fact that while everything seems like it's something that's really happened. The person who grabbed the teen looks corporeal anytime you see them. The way that they arrive and the way that May sees them, you do get kind of a ghostly or supernatural feeling about it. So yeah, the game definitely does its best to try and, make it seem like it's one or the other. And yay, at least Candy and May have, gotten back together, or at least ended their fight. I totally understand, one, Candy's frustration, and two, May being very standoffish. Both have their rights. It's just both of their lack of communication is what, excuse me, drove them apart. Which I guess is one of the central themes of the game, I guess, is communication and the people that you hang around with and get to know and all of that. Through Bee's run, if you continue talking to Bee, you kind of understand her incredible depression and her feeling of being stuck and alone and going to die in this, no-name town. And with Greg, you have this feeling of, or you get to understand his feeling of being inadequate, that, he's worried that, he's going to mess up things with Angus, which is definitely not good. And yeah, here we get to learn that the Browski house might not be around forever, which it's definitely a sad thing. As someone who lost their childhood home at about the same age that May is right now, it's, one of those things where it's a little weird and sad, but I guess it's just one of those things that happen, unfortunately. But, that was well over a decade ago, in the early 2000s. I do like this whole, murder mystery thing that May and Candy do in this sequence. I would have loved to have seen this be a running thing. Either May figuring out, mysteries out of a book with her mother, or her mother talking about the books that she's reading. You do get some of it, but I guess I would have just liked to have seen a bit more, personally. Which would have made the whole fight that much more devastating, I guess, because, you wouldn't know if, because, like I said earlier, you'd be like, oh, hey, things are awesome between these two, and then, oh, things aren't quite as awesome as you would like. Yeah, another thing I do like about this game is how it slowly becomes more and more open. When you first start off, you are regulated to the streets and the tunnel. But as you play the game more and more, the church gets opened up, the food donkey gets opened up, and I think the game is good in how it starts you off small and lets you explore a bit further and further and further, just so that you're not like completely overwhelmed on your first day, going like, oh god, I've got to talk to everybody. Another thing that I've noticed in this game is you start developing this rhythm. You start in your bedroom, you check the computer, you go downstairs, you check the bird, the books, and the clock, because those possibly have new things. Then you get out of your bed, go to the telephone pole that's right above it to check to see if May says anything new, which I think she only says new things like on each of the title placards, like Home Again, Weird Autumn, Long Fall, and The Hole at the Center of Everything, which I don't think happens, because, yeah, you can't jump at that point because May is seriously injured. But yeah, and of course it's always nice to check out the stars, and yes, I do agree with Mr. Chazikov. At this point, it's May's fault that she's hurting herself. I do know some people have said they aren't sure about May, that, she seems like a bit of a sociopath, and I can totally see people saying that, because she does seem to take advantage of a lot of people that are around her, but I don't really see her as being the kind of person who the only reason why she's hanging out with these people is the stuff that they provide. I don't know, to me it does seem like May does care about these people. She's just incredibly terrible at, doing anything about it. And I also kind of have a feeling that she's the kind of person who says things that she immediately regrets afterwards. In fact, you kind of see that in a few of the lines of dialogue where she, says something and then there's a pause and then she immediately kind of regrets it. I think it's just sort of like a character trait that she's kind of impulsive and careless. That said, I mean, she's a someone who's proudly doing misdemeanor crimes like vandalism, shoplifting, and basic breaking and entry and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that she's doesn't have some sociopathic ideas. I just don't think that she's quite a sociopath. Because I think she at least considers the feelings of others at some point, maybe not soon enough. And I do really love the introduction of Miss Rosa in the Weird Autumn supplemental or edition, I guess. Because I think Miss Rosa allows both a flesh out of May's grandfather, who seems to be a very important character to at least May, because he's brought up all the time, but I mean, he's like the central focus in the opening text crawl, pretty much. But yeah, it also gives more through the history of the town as well. And then May learns that her grandfather seems to have had an affair with this random dog person. Which she seems to be just slightly flabbergasted, but kind of pulls her herself back and starts talking more about the car and anarchy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm never sure if it's like, should you talk to your dad about this? Like, I think so, because I think it helps her dad figure out more about what to think about his father and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, this is pretty ominous, because I don't think you get to see her after that, so not sure if that was supposed to be sort of like an ominous "I will see you after the veil" kind of response, but well. Yeah, it is rather kind of remarkable that no one knows any of the people who have been kidnapped. I mean, you would think, these sorts of people would have connections. Like, I know the cult says that they try to make sure that people don't have, connections or anything like that, but at the same time, I mean, people know each other. That's, we're a social animal. I'm guessing the person that was captured during Harfest was probably a drifter. It would make the most sense why Molly said that there was not a single missing person report done, which again is sort of one of those things where it's like the game really does want to make you feel that Molly is part of the cult, which again, I can totally see that, but Yeah, I guess I don't see her as being quite that much of a murderous criminal. She's more of a hard ass and all that. I mean, if she really wanted to, she would have been, I would think that more people would go missing if Molly was involved in the whole thing. But yes, dreams are a very big thing about Night in the Woods, obviously. I think I mentioned last time or the time before, it's like I like the dreams, but they're kind of repetitious, which, I'd like to have seen some more different type stuffs. But again, just me. Kind of interesting how you'll see stuff in the background that comes into play later. I think the graveyard that's in the back of the church, I'm pretty sure that's the one that B and May go to, because B says that the graveyard is just down the street, so that would be something she would go to. But then there's the other graveyard, the sort of unofficial outside of one, that is where May and Angus go to over on Possum Jump. And yes, I keep remembering that there is nothing past Candy until after she says there's something after Candy. Candy, May's mom, all that sort of thing. Yeah, I keep forgetting you can annoy so many people by running and jumping around. I think that's the way you're supposed to get up here, is to go kind of like back and forth a whole lot, but yeah, no, I'm much bigger a fan of just using the power lines as a like trampoline. Yeah, poor Laurie and May, their kind of senses of awesome and terrifying are a bit different. I think it's because of what happened, that someone got kidnapped, that May is like very bummed about this. I mean, if she just saw like a straight up specter who just kind of like was scary and all that, that would have just been like, ooh, that was scary and awesome. But yeah, the fact that it seemed to have hurt somebody, yeah, it didn't do well. And yes, I do terribly agree with May. Their war is indeed some bullshit. It definitely is a lot of rich old people using young dumb people to make sure that they get more resources and goods at the expense of other people, which I mean, I guess it's sort of more of a direct form of capitalism, where one person uses another to achieve wealth, and you know, if the other person dies, that's okay. They're just merely a resource to obtain it. I swear. Back in my high school and college days, I was far more capitalistic and, dare I say, right-winged. In high school, I would have probably been one of those alt-right shitheads. I'll admit it. I didn't like my high school self now. But yeah, I think it wasn't until I started working that I realized how capitalism and, this corporate structure that we have set up for ourselves is absolutely designed against, workers and anyone who's below a certain socioeconomic caste. People will try to say that capitalism is great because anyone can become, wealthy and awesome and all that kind of stuff. But as even, Forbes magazine points out, that the number of new millionaires, people who aren't inheriting their wealth and stuff like that, remains astronomically small. So it's sort of like, it's designed to keep rich people rich and poor people poor, because someone needs to work for rich people. And as we're seeing now, as the wealth divide is getting increasingly bigger, and because of that, well, not because of that, but also with that, various environmental problems are going on, which is exacerbating, all that kind of stuff, health issues and all that. We're just kind of in a big downward spiral right now. Sorry for bringing that up. I guess I've just been kind of feeling depressed lately, so I'll try to take, care not to put that too much into most of my commentary. Yeah, Germ, so yeah, apparently Witch Dagger is a death metal band, which is, I guess, good to know. And yeah, I can totally understand Germ's kind of feeling of, he's not a big fan of what Greg, Angus, B, and May play, but I think he's more into just hanging out with his friends, people he cares about. And there Germ goes, fading right into the staircase. Yeah, I know he's turning off, but whatever. And yeah, no, I totally agree with May's, my choice of having May retort with, "What the hell were you doing?" Because, Molly just seemed to show up at the exact right time, because she heard reports that, people were over there, so more than likely she heard a report about, the kidnapping, but it was just sort of reported as, okay, hey, those homeless people are over at the food donkey. Molly saw May there, and she's like, what the hell are you doing? And yeah. So at that point, because as everyone says, you know, Molly saw, one deer hunter who was out too early. I think that was the cultist, because everyone says they're wearing, hunting jackets and the like. And yep, Molly's car is gone. I think that's why May stands still while Molly is walking off to say, the cop always dies. It gives the game a chance to despawn both Molly and the car without having to show her get into the vehicle. So, good job for the game there. Okay, band practice. And since you heard the opening theme there, yeah, I put in another cut there, but, so, I'm going to admit something. I, downloaded an auto key, program to try to get through, Pumpkinhead Man, and depending on how your computer is going, sometimes it doesn't work. Yeah, and sorry, I'm kind of going through this because this is like the fourth or fifth time I've done this. Apparently, it might just be the new Weird Autumn patch, or the auto key thing doesn't quite work. So yeah, it works at like the very beginning, and then it desyncs. Like at here, it's like just off, just barely off. And it gets back on and kind of desyncs a little bit. The kind of impressive thing is here it's still desynced. And it goes just a bit too slow. And now it's somehow synced up. So, I get through the hardest part of this, but I don't know. So I guess cheaters never prosper, which is fine. Wow, May, that was terrible. Yep, pretty bad. And see, that's why, I thought it would be okay to get a auto key program because, I mean, that's all that B does. She just, goes beep and then everything goes through. Yeah, as they say later, it's like, they don't think what May saw was a ghost, but they aren't denying the fact that she saw something. Um, so, I think the game definitely does try to, paint these people as relatively good folks. Um, And yeah, I'm not sure what that hiccup was. I think it was just my computer, you know, sort of recovering from something. Um, Probably running like a scan disk something underneath, which is never fun. Yeah, I would say May's reality is clearly better. I mean, it isn't real, but it's nicer, I guess. Microfiche. Yeah, the comment of Larry walking around here made me think that we would bump into another person, which would have been interesting, but nope. Just one of the many kind of red herrings that the game, tosses out. And yep, if you want a verification that this takes place in 2017, they explicitly say that right here. That for 1967, he is exactly 50 years old. And of course, Charity Verity, who is a terrible, terrible blight upon all things good and holy. Yeah, also looks like a terribly lazy rhyme as well. I mean, they just add an itty at the end of things, so apparently the writers weren't exactly hired for their wordsmithy. But yeah, with all of the additions, the game certainly seems to have added an additional, like, 2 or 3 hours to its runtime, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, the game's still relatively, fast paced. I wouldn't list it over 20 hours, but it was indeed fine. And yeah, I like the fact that May's primary goal in this seems to be because she saw a kidnapping. That's why she's, looking this up, even if she thinks it's more of a ghost or something like that. The fact that it seems to be connected to her, headaches and visions seem to be more like, you know, uh, secondary, I guess. And it's nice to see that B and May are still somewhat friends. Or at least, best friends in proximity. Although, May, you shouldn't shove people off of chairs. That's not a good thing, even if you are feeling way too excitable. Yes, underground gases afflict many. I think that's like one of the hints that what's going on isn't supernatural so much as it is chemical. Like I was saying during the history thing, more than likely the water around Possum Springs has been, poisoned with arsenic, naturally occurring, but still poisonous, because of the whole copper mine going on down there. So, and yeah, there's been instances where near, mining towns that gases start, leaking out. It's not enough to cause people to, like, die on the spot. The canary isn't going to fall out of its cage or anything like that, but, and yep, I think you need to see this article on the teeth in order to give the tooth over to your dad, or at the end of the game. Yeah, you do slowly get to learn more about, May's secret through other people. She doesn't explain it to you because, she doesn't need to explain to herself what her history is. So it isn't until, near the end of the game where she's feeling the most vulnerable that she does kind of sit down and kind of discuss what's gone wrong. So, yeah, I think that was certainly handled as naturally as they could, which is a good thing. Yeah. I'm not sure if May is being serious there or not. I'd like to think that she's just, being an actual dork at that point. I'd like to think so. So, second meeting, I guess. That would be why this thing is so small. Or, I guess for a poetry society, it's probably rather large for something of this town. I don't actually pay her in string, right? Sure. I think May is also just a little bit gullible, which, happens, I guess, but it works for them. I'm actually kind of curious on what, you know, Selma decided to, or why Selma decided to join this group. Did she start writing poetry because she joined up this group, as a part of like a rehabilitation thing? Or, was she writing poetry for her rehabilitation and she decided, heck, I want more people to hear what I, do? I'm up for short and dorky. Yeah, no, it's not. And totally agree with her, kind of anger and remorse over everything. Poor Selmers. And I like how the music fades away when, after the first couple of lines, and you realize that this poem is not going to be one of those cute little ones that she's been saying on her porch step. I would have preferred it if, Miss Quincy had put away her phone during that, but, whatever. I think it's because the sprites are so big in this scene. I love them doing May's nodding gesture, which is just like barely 3D enough to make it sort of look correct, but poor Angus. I also do like the fact that at least each of the, places that the three of them go to are places that they want to go. Um, I guess that makes sense if you want to, do it through narrative and make people seem more fleshed out. And yeah, that's always a good distinction. Not, we were, it's we are. To say that, you're still getting along, which is good for things. And yeah, I totally see Stan Borowski feeling a little pride. That's why he doesn't want to talk about this sort of thing, especially to May, who I imagine feels like he's got to be, a big provider, and the fact that the house is a little bit iffy is, kind of a sore spot to him that he doesn't want to talk about. Ah, well. And yeah, if you notice, I pretty much always take the opportunity to hang out with Angus during this section because, yeah, it is the only time you get to hang out and learn about Angus, and you learn a whole lot in a short period of time. Yeah, and I know I've always been doing the like 1-2 or either all Greg or all B, which means that the person you kind of control during the beginning of the end of everything or the center of everything is going to be B or Greg, but not sure if that changes if you split stuff up. But then again, I mean, I think it's 3 nights, so I guess it'll be whoever you spend the most amount of time with, either 2 with one or 2 with the other. And yeah, I know I've been kind of complaining about the dreams. It's not that I don't like them. I like the setting, I like how everything looks, I like how ethereal and both real and non everything kind of seems, but it's just the repetition of finding the 4 musicians over and over again. And you don't even know who the musicians, not magicians, are unless you do this one side quest, which isn't particularly intuitive. So, yeah, the fact that there's a lot of emphasis on, these people who are relatively unimportant, I guess, is kind of weird to me, but eh. I guess I shouldn't complain, except for the fact that this is sort of me trying to critique the game, so, yeah, I think that's a perfect opportunity to say things that I like or don't like. But this is the last dream like this, and the second to last dream at all. So, after this is just one more talk with the god, not god, and then the end of your nights go relatively quickly because I don't think May actually ever goes to bed afterwards. Not like regularly, at least. because all sorts of events happen. But anyway, that's it for this night. I'm back on Friday for more Night in the Woods. And have a good one. See you next time.